رحم الله من قرأ الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ما شاء الله ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل، نعم المولى ونعم النصير. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، خاتم النبيين، شفيع المذنبين، رحمة للعالمين، مولانا وسيدنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين المظلومين الهداة المهديين، لا سيما بقية الله في الأرض، أرواحنا له الفداء. ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في قرآنه المجيد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ومن يهاجر في سبيل الله يجد في الأرض مراغما كثيرا وسعة، ومن يخرج من بيته مهاجرا إلى الله ورسوله ثم يدركه الموت فقد وقع أجره على الله وكان الله غفورا رحيما. ومحمد وآل محمد صلوات. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. We find ourselves on the 7th night of Muharram. We thank Allah for the opportunity to commemorate our beloved Mawla Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam. May He accept our azadari, our tears, our matam, our noha and our majalis. We were discussing regarding the movement of the soul from one state to another state. And we had discussed so far that the soul begins in the state of nafse ammara, which is a very bad state. It is a very low state of the soul in which the soul is continuously involved in evil. It has no remorse and it has no guilt. Then after some hard work it can move into nafse lawama, which is an accusative soul. That means that the soul now begins to feel guilt and remorse. That is the beginning of change. If a person does not feel guilt, then he can never change. So Allah gives this soul the power and ability to feel guilt. Then we discussed nafse mutafakkira. The more that the insan thinks deeply about his position in the world, his relationship with God, his duties towards Allah, when he begins to think about the more philosophical questions in his life, he enters into nafse mutafakkira, the thinking soul. However, the thinking soul still has some deficiencies. The major deficiency of the thinking soul is that it lacks consistency. It is not consistent in the way it behaves with God. It may do some good and then it may do some bad. It may do a string of good deeds, but then it will be broken by a bad deed. This is a lack of consistency. But the more it is strengthened through our thinking and our thought, it ceases to make excuses and it ceases to legitimize its actions. You will see that a weak soul amongst people is that soul which does bad, but then even worse than that bad deed, it legitimizes that bad deed. It makes excuses for itself. It convinces itself that the reason why it did the bad thing was a noble and justifiable reason. This is nothing more than the tricks of shaitan and the tricks of nafs. Because naturally, our soul does not like to feel guilt. Therefore, when I feel guilty, my soul, which is uncultured, uncultivated and untrained, will hit back with legitimization and excuses. So I will start to tell myself false realities regarding my actions. Now, What about when we move into the next level of nafs? Let's say the person who is experiencing nafs mutafakkira begins to gain consistency. He begins to gain consistency of good deeds. His sins are reducing, his sawab is increasing. What then? Well, we enter into the next level of nafs, which is known as nafs mulhama. And I will explain this further with one salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. In the Quran, Surah Al-Shams, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala takes 11 qasams, 11 oaths. وَالشَّمْسِ وَضُحَاهَا وَالْقَمَرِ إِذَا تَلَاهَا. Again and again, he swears by these mighty things in the universe. There are two things to note. Number one, when Allah swears by something, then the thing which is coming after the oath is something amazing. Number two, Allah only swears by amazing and big things, things that will impress us. So what does He swear by? He swears by the sun. He says, Qasam by the sun, Qasam by the moon, وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا, Qasam by the day, وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا, and the night, وَالسَّمَاءِ وَمَا بَنَاهَا, the sky and the way it is made, وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا طَحَاهَا, the earth, وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا, and the soul in its proportions, فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. After swearing on all of these things, he says, I swear by the soul and the proportions of the soul, فَأَلْهَمَهَا, and we have inspired it, فُجُورَهَا, the bad things, وَتَقْوَاهَا, and the good things. From this word of the Quran, فَأَلْهَمَهَا, Allah is saying we have inspired it, we take the word mulhama. Mulhama means inspired. So whenever I say nafs mulhama, I'm talking about the soul which is now inspired by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It has moved from sins into guilt, into thinking, and now it has entered a state when the good deeds are becoming consistent, and therefore it is open to the inspiration of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah now clearly gives hidayat and guidance to this soul. We understand much better in nafs mulhama what is right and what is wrong. We are much more able to make a decision. Should I do this or should I not do this? It is the soul which is switched on. It is the soul in which the illumination has happened. The aha moment, the moment of spark, has been lit inside this soul. It is now awake. It is now going towards commitment. The key characteristic of this soul is that this soul will be governed. The hakim of this soul, the governor of this soul, is intellect, not shahwat. Previously, in the other states of the soul, I was a slave to my passions. I would eat when I want. I would sleep when I want. I would become angry as I want. Now I can't. My soul will not let me. My soul will say, you have to judge. Is this the right time for anger? Is this the right time for food? Is this the right time for relationships? Is this the right time for activities in life? My aql will help me decide because it is inspired by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I will begin to weigh every action against my intellect. And my intellect will decide how I am to perform my actions. Now, what happens at this stage, brothers and sisters, is that until now, we have been in the warm-up stage. Sorry to tell you, but until now, we have simply been warming up. It is when we enter nafs mulhama that we actually now make e'lan jang. we have now declared war. Now we have come in the open, and we have stood before shaitan and nafs, and we are telling shaitan and nafs that now from this moment on, I am going to be at war with you. So what happens when there's an enemy and you declare war? The fighting starts. Therefore, when we enter into this stage, we can expect two things to happen. Number one, the attacks from the other side, the attacks from the soul and from shaitan will increase. This is where many people fail. They falter at this stage. It is the key stage of jihad in a spiritual sense. Because the i'lan-e-jang has been done, the forces of shaitan and nafs are now aware that this person is against us, and they begin to attack us. With a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The other thing which happens at this stage is, because of the attacks and because of the battles which happen, there are casualties in every war. When the attacks start, they produce casualties. What are the casualties of this stage? The casualties, inshallah, are selfishness is killed, jealousy is killed, pride is killed, ghurur, takabbur, fakhr, honor over false things is killed. All of these habits that we have, ghibat, lying, hypocrisy, these are killed. However, there is also the chance that our good side can be killed if we allow the forces to overcome us. So we could move back into mutafakkira, lawama, even ammara. Look at the story of shaitan. With one sin, where was he and where did he fall? With one sin. Mawla Ali alayhi salatu wasalam tells us. He says, O Insan, take a lesson from the story of shaitan. He describes what happens to shaitan. Then he says, do you expect, is it the justice of Allah to allow a human being to enter into heaven with the same characteristic with which he threw an angel out of heaven? If shaitan was in heaven as an angel, he was a jinn but he was at the level of angel, and he had pride for which he was thrown out of heaven, can I be expected to be allowed in heaven with that same characteristic? It's impossible. It is against the justice of God. So as my soul is now cleansed and clear of all of these things, one new thing happens in my life. This thing, brothers and sisters, is so important. It is so vital, but I am willing to put my word at stake that it is not found in our societies generally, neither in the East nor the West. That thing is peace of mind. Dil mein shanti, zehen ka sukoon. We don't have it. The same insan, the same human being who is at this stage remote controlling a robot on Mars, who is able to go through the Martian landscape, take pictures of the landscape of a different world, is unable to sleep with peace at night. We know the intricacies of the human body. We have made fundamental breakthroughs in science and technology and medicine. We can tell each other about the intricate nature of the insect world, yet we do not have peace in our hearts. There's one couplet which comes to mind. इस दौरे तरक्की के अंदाज कुछ निराले हैं, इस दौरे तरक्की के अंदाज कुछ निराले हैं, सड़कों पे उजाला ज़हनों में अंधेरा है. We have come so far in many things, but in our own minds and hearts, we have somehow neglected ourselves. Now, how to achieve this peace of mind? The peace of mind can only come with a polished soul when Allah puts His inspiration into this soul. The sukoon is from Allah. We say to Allah, Allahumma anta salam wa minka salam. Oh Allah, you are the source of peace. From you comes peace. Therefore, what I need to do is I need to simply plug myself into that source of peace and tranquility. It will flow into me automatically. And for that I need a tranquil, peaceful, inspired soul. I want to give you the sixth weapon right now. We've done 5 weapons so far of the practical things that we can do. This is the sixth weapon that we can do to increase peace and tranquility in our minds and in our hearts. It is very simple. Every single person can do it. It is not a long dua. After namaz fajr and after namaz maghrib, these are the 2 times. After namaz fajr and namaz maghrib, recite 7 times La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahil aliyyil azim. This is in riwayat. Recite this formula 7 times after these 2 namazes to bring a sense of peace and tranquility in your life. I will explain why it is so effective with one salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. You see, we recite many things and we think that by reciting, simply reciting, our difficulties will go away. It is true, it can happen. But if you want to make your du'as even more effective, then I want you to look at the wisdom behind the dua. Why does this sentence, La hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-aliyyil azim, why should it give me peace? Look at the words. There is no power or strength except that of Allah. So once I accept, once I understand that there is nothing that can happen in this whole universe except by the will of God, why should I stress? Why should I bother? What is going to happen is going to happen by the will of Allah. I must do my best, but then the worry, why worry? Because I have put myself into a position of believing sincerely in La hawla wa la quwwa, that I sincerely believe that there is no strength or power except for that of God, so then I don't need to stress or worry anymore. This is how we make our du'as and our zikrs more effective. We don't just recite them by all means. It is a lot of sawab and it does have an effect. But to boost that effectiveness, think about the wisdom behind that zikr. With a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So once into the state of nafs al-mulhama, once I enter into the state of nafs al-mulhama and I have an inspired soul, I have announced to the forces of evil that I am now a servant of Allah. That is now my new identity on this earth. I am Abdullah, servant of God, ghulam of God, abd of God. Now in this regard, we have the topic of this evening, which is 3 principles which will change your life. I'm going to describe to you this hadith from the 6th Imam, and I hope that it has the effect on you which it has had on many people. Imam describes 3 things that we can do as an attitude shift, mind shift, psychological shift. If we are able to do this psychological shift, then we can enter into this area called servanthood of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. With a salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We read in history that there was a gentleman who lived at the time of our 6th Imam, Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salatu wasalam. This man's name was Inwan. He was from the city of Basra in Iraq. Therefore, he is known as Inwane Basri. Inwan from Basra. He was not from the mazhab of Ahlul Bayt. He was from Ahl Sunnah. He was a Sunni. He was 94 years old and he has an interaction with our sixth Imam. The ulama who are interested in self-building and building the soul, they write this hadith and they keep it in their wallets. They look at it every few days. So Inwan tells us that he used to go to the classes of a teacher in Medina. The teacher's name was Malik ibn Anas. Malik ibn Anas, if you do a search for him on Google, you will find out. He was like a very distinguished figure in Medina. He was a teacher, he was spiritual, and he used to give many classes. So Inwan went to these classes. Then what happened is that the sixth Imam begins to live in Medina. As you may know, the sixth Imam in the beginning of his life spent a lot of time in Kufa. Then he moved to Medina. When he moves to Medina, he begins to teach. He also begins to hold classes. So Inwan says that I heard that Ja'far, son of Muhammad alayhi salatu wassalam, had come to Medina, and therefore I started to go to his classes. I found his classes very inspiring. I requested him, can you give me more? Can I spend more time with you? Can I come to you privately? He said to me, Inni rajulun matloob. I am a busy man. Therefore, I advise you, keep going to the classes of Malik. You will think, how can an Imam say this to someone? Surely an Imam would welcome someone in. No, not necessarily. Imams will always build the anticipation in a person before giving them secrets. Sometimes Imam will send a person away for his encouragement to increase, and then he will come back. So what happens is, this Inwan Basri becomes hurt. He says to himself, I am ready to seek knowledge from this man. Why is he turning me away? There must be something wrong with me. This is the first etiquette of this path, brothers and sisters. That when we face a setback, we should not blame anyone else. We should not say, oh, he did not give me time. He did not welcome me. He talked to me rudely. Look within. Because I cannot control anything else in this universe. I cannot control my child, my spouse. I cannot control anything except for myself. Therefore, always start with yourselves. Look inside and see that something may be wrong. So he starts to look within. And he says, something must be wrong with me. He goes to the Haram of the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He does salam and ziyarat of the Holy Prophet. The next day he comes back. He does ziyarat of the Holy Prophet. He prays 2 rakat namaz. The second etiquette of this path is to do tawassul to the Ahlul Bayt. Despite being not of the mazhab of Ahlul Bayt, he had this aqidah of doing tawassul through the Holy Prophet. Whenever you find things are difficult in life, whenever you find that things are not going right and you want a hajat, use the door of the Ahlul Bayt. So he goes, he does the 2 rakat namaz. And he says, I asked God, oh Allah, make the heart of the 6th Imam soft towards me. He then says, I was so upset. I stopped going to the lessons of Malik because they were not giving me what I wanted. I stopped. I stayed at home. I only left my home for the prayers in the mosque. You can see that he's clearly in some kind of depression. He's feeling low, he's feeling bad. He wants to have an audience with the 6th Imam. He said, at one stage my sabr finished. And I resolved to go and sit at the door of this man until he accepts me. Third etiquette, perseverance. Try and try again. until Allah opens that door, keep trying. It will open eventually. So he says, I went after Asr and I knocked on the door of the sixth Imam and I said, I'm here to see the Sharif. Think about the words being used. In one, as we said, is a Sunni. He will not address the Imam as Imam. The word he uses is, I am here to see the Sharif, the noble one, the honorable one. The Khadim, the servant of the house of Imam, tells him he is in prayer. If you want, then you can wait here by the door. When he finishes, I will come and call you. He sits down. He waits and he waits. The servant comes back and says to him, Udkhulu ala barakatillah. Come in with the blessings of Allah. This is Allah answering prayer. What did he ask for in the mosque? Oh Allah, turn the heart of this man towards me. His servant comes and says, Udkhulu ala barakatillah. Enter inside with the blessings of Allah. He says, I went in. I saw this man, this Sharif. He said to me, Ijlis, ghafarallahu laka. Take a seat, may Allah forgive you. I sat, and the Imam put his head down for a while. Then he put his head up, and he asked me, Abu Man, whose father are you now? This, in Arabic, in those times, if you were to call someone by their name, if you were to say, Oh Hassan, Oh Inwan, Oh Ali, that was not so respectful. To call them by their kunya, by their title, was more respectful. Imam gives the ultimate level of respect to this person. He's not from the mazhab of the Ahlul Bayt, yet Imam addresses him with utmost respect. He says, Abu Man, whose father are you? What is your title? He said, Abu Abdullah. My title is Abu Abdullah. Subhanallah. Imam Sadiq's title is also Abu Abdullah. Exactly the same. And Imam Hussein's title. Qultu Abu Abdullah. I said to him that my title is Abu Abdullah. He says, Qala tabbat Allahu kunyata wa wafakak. May Allah keep you successful. Ma mas'alatu. What do you want? Inwan is so humble. He has such a level of decency. He says to himself that at that moment I said to myself, if I receive nothing more than this dua from Ja'far Sadiq, then I have been successful. This is enough for me. So he says, Sa'altu Allah an yu'atifa qalbaka alayya. I asked Allah to turn your heart towards me. وَيَرْزُقْنِي مِنْ عِلْمِكَ, and to grant me from your knowledge. And I think that now Allah has answered my prayer. What does he ask Imam for? To benefit from the Imam's knowledge. Now let us look at how Imam gives him knowledge with one salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Imam says this, brothers and sisters, please take this away with you for the rest of your lives. Imam says, لَيْسَ الْعِلْمِ بِالتَّعَلُّمِ. The ilm, the knowledge you are seeking, the true knowledge will not be found by reading books. It cannot be through studies. It cannot be through going to classes of academic knowledge. إِنَّمَا هُوَ نُورٌ. It is a light. The knowledge that you are seeking is the knowledge of God. Can words describe God? Can teachings describe God? Can a teacher describe God? The only way that we can truly gain a good understanding of our Lord is by polishing the heart. He says, إِنَّمَا هُوَ نُورٌ. It is only a light. يَقَعُ فِي قَلْبِ مَنْ يُرِيدُ اللَّهُ أَنْ يَهْدِيَ. When Allah wishes to guide someone, He puts this light into their heart. فَإِنْ أَرَدْتَ الْعِلْمِ. You say you want knowledge, فَطْلُبْ أَوَّلًا فِي نَفْسِكَ الْحَقِيقَةَ الْعُبُودِيَّةِ. Before going to knowledge, you must find within yourself the reality of worship. Imam does not say to him, keep roza, pray namaz, do tahajjud, do namaz-e-shab, pray Quran, do this dua, that dua. Imam says no. The first thing I advise you to do is to find out the meaning of worship. Bandagi, ibadat. What is ibadat? First you must find this within your heart. In one says, Qultu ya Sharif. In one says, I then said, Oh Sharif. And then I was silent. He didn't know what to say. Imam says, Qul ya Abba. Tell me, what do you want? He says, وَمَا الْحَقِيقَةُ الْعُبُودِيَّةِ. Then tell me, what is this reality of worship? Thank God he asked this question. Otherwise we would not know the answer maybe today. So he asks, what is the reality of worship? And this is when Imam describes the three principles that we are going to discuss today with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Imam says, the first principle of being a slave of Allah is that an la yara al-abdu, a servant of God should not consider that bounty and wealth which Allah has given him as his own property. Tough, very tough indeed. A person should not consider the wealth and the bounty which Allah has given him as his own. But Allah, I go to work, I wake up in the morning, I have to take rubbish from my boss, I have to withstand the traffic of Mumbai, I have to do all these things which I don't want to do. I'm getting the salary, the bank account is in my name. No, it is not yours. لأن العبيد لا يكون لهم ملك. You know why? Because you want to know the secret of worship. You are a slave. Slaves do not own anything. So can I stand in front of Allah and say, oh Allah, I am your ghulam, I am your banda, but yet I have so much with me. I have millions, and I have a house, and I have properties, and I have assets, and I have businesses. Allah will say then, mashallah, you are not my slave. You don't need a master, you already have yourself as a master. لأن العبيد لا يكون لهم ملك. Because slaves do not have property. That is why they are slaves. يرون مالا مال الله. They look at property, they consider property and dawlat and mal as the mal of Allah, not theirs. So now, if I am convinced that my wealth is not my own, then when I come to pay khums, sadaqah, all the other dues on me, I will not hesitate. I will not feel that pinch which I used to feel. Oh, this year so much khums. Oh, this much I have to give now to this good cause. It is not yours to begin with. Therefore don't hesitate to give it. It is Allah's. Once I understand this, then forget khums. I will also look at my 80% with a different view. Khums I give because I have to. Don't think that we give khums so it's such a big thing. Khums is a must. What about the 80% which I am left with? Let me pay my attention towards that. So the first principle is that a true servant of God looks at his wealth not as his own, but as the mal, the property of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The second principle of our lecture today, from our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam. يُدَبِّرُ الْعَبْدُ لِنَفْسِهِ تَدْبِيرًا. The second principle is, a true servant of God will not make for himself long, lengthy dreams and aspirations. At this moment, we all have long dreams. I want to retire by a certain age. I want X amount in my account. I want this, that and the other. I want to buy a house in such and such area. I want to have businesses here, there and everywhere. I want to do this and this. We have, alhamdulillah, mashallah, already planned out our whole existence. Where is the room for Allah in my plan? What am I going to do when Allah changes my plan? When He redirects my course? When He tells me, no, not this way, but this way. Because I am so convinced of my dream and my wish, I will find it highly offensive. And I will say things like, what has Allah done to me? What bala has Allah done to me? What guna have I done to get this? We say this, don't we? How shameful. Allah has a plan for me already. Let me give my plan to Him. Allah, you direct me. I will take small steps. I will plan maybe for a day, 2 days, a week, that's fine. Small plans are there. We must be organized in our lives. We cannot live in 24-hour cycles alone. But I should not have those lengthy, very far-fetched desires and wishes in life. Because when the day comes that I don't get it, I'll become depressed. I'll become affected. I will go into depression. So the second thing is that a person who is a slave of Allah will not make lengthy plans for himself. This is why we teach our children, and we have the teaching in Islam to say Insha'Allah before everything. Let me ask you a quick question. Inshallah means by the will of Allah. If I don't say Inshallah, then does that mean the will of Allah will not be done? I forgot. I didn't remember to say Inshallah. I wasn't taught to say Inshallah. Many millions of people don't even know the words Inshallah. So does that mean the will of Allah is not being done? The will of Allah will always be done. By saying Inshallah, what I'm doing is I'm showing God, oh Allah, I am trying to become at one with your will. Your irada is going to happen no matter what happens. I'm trying to place myself in line with your irada. I don't want to be against you. So I'm saying Inshallah. If you think it is good for me, then let it happen. But then when it doesn't happen, I feel bad, which is hypocrisy. At one stage if I say Inshallah, and then it doesn't happen, then I feel bad, which is hypocrisy. Because what I'm saying is, I'm trying to come into your line, it didn't happen, now I have a shikayat against you. Let me tell you one story from the life of from one of the prophets with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Insan thinks he's in control. Insan thinks he can do things to fool the world around him. He thinks he's in control of his own destiny. In the time of Nabi Sulaiman, Nabi Sulaiman, as you know, had a massive kingdom. Such a kingdom which has never been repeated again on this earth. He was in charge of jinn, he was in charge of animals, he was in charge of clouds, he was in charge of winds. Everything in the known universe was under the command of Nabi Sulaiman. One day, during the time of Nabi Sulaiman, there was a man who was a companion of his. The man was standing in the market. The man was doing his business in the market, and all of a sudden he sees another person looking at him. This other person is looking at him in such a way, it made him feel nervous. The glance was piercing, aggressive, curious, scary. His heart started to worry. He said to himself, something is not right here. I don't feel good anymore. He goes to Nabi Sulaiman. He says, oh Prophet, do you have the ability to control the winds? Nabi Sulaiman says, yes I do. He says, then I ask you a favor. Can you command the winds to lift me from here and drop me to a far, far remote place on the other side of the world? Nabi Sulaiman says, yes, I have this ability, but tell me why. He says, just now in the marketplace, I saw someone looking at me in such a way I feel scared. I don't know what's going to happen, but my heart is racing. I need to go away from here. Nabi Sulaiman gives the order, the wind takes him and puts him on that island. After a little time, Malakul Maut, the angel of death, comes into the palace of Nabi Sulaiman. Malakul Maut is looking confused. Nabi Sulaiman says, why are you looking confused? Malakul Maut, the angel of death, replies, that I have never been confused about taking the soul of someone like I am confused today. I have been told by Allah that I must take the soul of this one man in a far away island. But I've just seen him a few minutes earlier in the marketplace. I don't understand. How can he be here and then within a few minutes he's in a far away island on the other side of the world? This is why I'm confused. Brothers, Allah's will be done no matter what happens. I should align myself into the will of Allah in order to be a proper servant of Allah. Salawat ala Muhammad wa That's two principles done. Now the third principle. Imam says, وَجُمْلَةُ إِشْتِغَالِهِ فِيمَا أَمَرَ اللَّهُ بِهِ وَنَهَا عَنْهُ. He says the third principle of the slave of Allah is that his time is spent worrying about what is halal and what is haram, what Allah has made obligatory and what Allah has made forbidden. How do we spend our time? We are somewhat consumed by the mod cons of today. The time of ours and our children seems to go in things like gadgets, games, homework, WhatsApp, texts, messaging, chatting, Facebook. All of these things seem to be eating up our spare time. What does that produce? It produces ghibat, manduk, offense to one another, hurt feelings. I shouldn't have said this. It is so easy to type out that message and press send, and then to think later, what have I said? You've already hurt many people. You've already put, Nauzubillah, a shame on yourself by sending certain things. We must inculcate within our lives a sense that when I have the precious spare time in my day, I must use it wisely. I shouldn't be gossiping, I shouldn't be doing ghibat, I shouldn't be doing what we say panchat of everybody, or worrying about everyone's business. This is consuming me on a daily basis. I need to be using my time much wiser in the way of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the third principle of the three principles was to use the time in looking and learning about what Allah has made obligatory and what He has made forbidden. How will I get closeness to Him? How will I use my time here better? How will I become a proper servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? These were the three principles that will change our lives forever. It is not just one action, it is an attitude shift. And that is the seventh weapon in our armory of weapons. Attitude shift. From merely thinking that I am a slave of God to a new attitude with these three principles. They were to look at my wealth as the wealth of God. Number two, not to make lofty plans and desires, but instead to submit to the will of Allah. And number three, to busy myself in Allah's laws and what makes Him happy and what He has forbidden. Salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Assalamu Assalamu alaikum ya Aba Abdullah al-Hussein, respected elders, brothers and sisters. We see in Karbala, every single member of the 5 Panjatan were represented on the plains of Karbala on the day of Ashura. The Holy Prophet was represented by Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein was there as his own representative as well. Janab Abbas represented Mawla Ali. Janab Zainab represented Lady Fatima. What about the representative of Imam Hassan? It is narrated in Karbala. Imam Hassan had 5 sons. We usually hear about one, but he had 5 sons present in Karbala. One of them who is less known is someone called Abdullah ibn al-Hasan. He was around 10 years old. The story of Abdullah's shahadat is that when Imam Hussein alayhi salam was on the floor of Karbala and the arrows had been rained into the body of Abi Abdullah and the enemies were surrounding him, hurting him with their swords and their spears, this young boy Abdullah ibn al-Hasan was standing by the door of the tent. He was in the custody of Bibi Zainab. Bibi Zainab had the duty of holding on to him. He was looking at his uncle Hussein being brutally martyred. He could not take it any longer. He runs out of the grasp of Bibi Zainab. Imam Hussein loved this boy so much that despite being on the floor of Karbala, when Imam Hussein sees that Abdullah ibn al-Hasan has left the grasp of Bibi Zainab, Imam Hussein shouts out, "Khudihi ya Zainab, hold him O Zainab, do not let him come." But the boy runs at such a speed for the help of Imam Hussein that the young boy is caught amongst the swords of those who are attacking Imam Hussein. And then we hear of the other famous son of Imam Hassan, Hazrat Shah Qasim ibn al-Hasan. This young man was perhaps 13 or 14 years old in Karbala. On the night of Ashura, Mazloom Hussein puts out all of the lights and all of the candles. He removes his bay'at from his followers. He tells them, tomorrow each and every one of you will be shaheed. Whoever wishes to go from me is free to do so. I relieve you of my bay'at. Imam Hassan's son, Janab Qasim, comes to Imam Hussein afterwards. He says, Ya Amma, oh my uncle, you said that everybody would be shaheed. Can you confirm, am I also going to be shaheed for you? Imam Hussein asks him, Ya Qasim, you are a young boy, you talk of shahadat, tell me, كيف الموت عندك يا قاسم? How do you find death, O Qasim? He says, Ya Amma, ahla min al-asal, sweeter than honey for you, my uncle. On the morning of Ashura, the ashab have been shaheed. Hazrat Ali Akbar has been shaheed. Some of the family members have been shaheed. Janab Qasim comes to Imam Hussein and says, oh uncle, I now ask you for permission to go and fight. The Ahlul Bayt will use Janab Qasim as their last memory of the brother Hassan. Whenever they wanted to remember Rasulullah, they would look at Ali Akbar. But whenever they wanted to remember Hassan, they would look at Qasim. Hussein says, oh, the memory of my brother, do not ask me this question. Hussein turns away, and he turns away. Janab Qasim is pacing up and down. He is thinking how to get the permission from his uncle Hussein. He goes over to his mother, Farwa. He says, mother, tell me, how can I get the permission from my uncle? Farwa remembers the wasiyat of Imam Hassan. She says, my son Qasim, just at this moment I remember, before before your father passed away, he had given me a bundle, and he had told me that when things become difficult in Karbala, I order you to open this packet, and there are 2 letters inside. One is for my son Qasim, one is for my brother Hussein. Give Qasim the letter and give Hussein his letter. Farwa hands the letter of Imam Hassan to Janab Qasim. Qasim opens the letter. He reads in there, "Oh my dear son Qasim, from your loving father Hassan. Oh Qasim, on the day of Ashura, when everyone is given their sacrifices, I present you as my sacrifice. I want you to sacrifice for yourself for Hussein." And Janab Qasim comes to Imam Hussein and says, "Abu Abdullah, my father has given this for you." When Imam Hussein sees the letter of Hassan alayhi salam, he begins to cry. He recognizes the handwriting of his brother. He puts the letter to his lips and he kisses it. He opens the letter. He reads the letter. The letter says, "Oh brother Hussein, accept from me my son Qasim in your hour of need. I present him for you for sacrifice." Imam Hussein now is majboor. He has to agree to this request. He grants Qasim the permission to go into the battlefield. Ajrukum Allah. History narrates that at the time when Qasim is going out into the plains of Karbala, he comes to Imam Hussein and they have a final embrace. Uncle hugs the nephew. Nephew hugs the uncle. Nephew is so small in front of the uncle that the head of Qasim is merely to the chest of Hussein, and they both cry on each other to such an extent, and they cry and they cry. Finally Qasim separates and he goes out into the Maidan of Karbala. Qasim alayhi salam begins to fight. He fights so bravely. It is said that he sends many of the enemies towards hell. He sends many of them towards Jahannam. But at the end, the enemies resort to 2 cowardly methods to bring down this moon of Imam Hassan. The first method is that they fire arrows towards the head of Janab Qasim. And as the arrows hit the head of Janab Qasim, he becomes shaky upon the horse. Then they resort to spears. They get lengthy spears and they hit him with the spears. As he falls to the ground, he cries out, "Adrikni, Ya Abu Abdullah, oh Uncle Hussein, come and take me." Imam Hussein rushes towards Qasim. He runs towards Qasim. As Qasim is on the floor, Imam Hussein sees that the forces of Yazid are coming to Qasim, wanting to kill him, wanting to finish him off. Imam Hussein intercepts. He begins to kill one by one the warriors, but he is unable to reach the body of Qasim. He wants to reach the body, but he is too busy defending him from the attacks. Umar Asad, the coward, what does he do? He says, "We are unable to reach this boy. Therefore, gather all the horses and do a stampede upon this young boy's body. He is on the floor. He cannot stand. Do a stampede. Run the horses over the body of Qasim." There is a difference. There are 2 differences in the shahadat of Qasim. Ajrukum Allah. There are 2 differences in the shahadat of Qasim. Usually, every shaheed who was killed in Karbala shouted to Imam Hussein once, "Adrikni ya Abu Abdullah," but not Qasim. Every time the horses went over Qasim, he would shout, "Adrikni ya Abu Abdullah, Adrikni ya Abu Abdullah, Adrikni ya Abu Abdullah. Come to me, uncle. Protect me, uncle. Help me, uncle." Hussein cannot reach. The other thing about Qasim which is unique is that every shaheed, Imam Hussein had to pick up the body of the shaheed, but not with Qasim. By the time Hussein reaches the body of Qasim, there is no body of Qasim. There are the pieces of Qasim. Imam Hussein lifts up one part of the body with one hand, another part of the body with another hand. He places some of the body in his hands. He picks it up in pieces. He takes it back to the khayma, to the tent. He lays it down next to Ali Akbar. He puts one hand on Ali Akbar's chest, one hand on Qasim's pieces. He says, "Allahumma Rabbana
from us the sacrifice of our children. Salam to Qasim, salam to Hassan alayhi salam, salam to Imam Hussein. Allah lanatullah al-qawm al-zalimin. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلِبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ. Oh Allah, accept our azadari. Oh Allah, give us the wasila and the shafaat of Imam Hussein. Oh Allah, bless us in this month of Muharram to be like the Ansar of Imam Hussein. Oh Allah, hasten the appearance of our 12th Imam. Oh Allah, grant us the tawfiq to be in the army of the 12th Imam. Oh Allah, the illegal movements who are killing our brothers and sisters throughout the world, oh Allah, make them neast and nabood. Oh Allah, protect the Shias wherever they may be. Oh Allah, bring to an end the injustice that we see throughout the world. Oh Allah, bless us, bless our hearts, bless our souls. Oh Allah, bless our marhumeen. Give them an ali daraja in the life hereafter. Let us remember all marhumeen with Al-Fatiha.